All right, 10.4, use square roots to solve quadratic equations. So Abby's already got a head start on this one because this is how she was solving the equations in the last section.
How do you do that?
You, Abby.
Oh, I should do that.
I'm not sure how she did it, but she was doing it. So you've already got a head start on this section. But in this section, we're going to be solving essentially x squared equals d by taking square roots. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be in that form where like x squared equals some number, but that's just, we can ultimately get it to that when we're solving quadratic equations. Now, there's more stuff in this chapter that if we had more time we would cover. That would obviously lead into this, but I'm trying to hit the high things of what you'll need for the future. So, if d is greater than 0, meaning it's a positive number, then x squared equals d has two solutions, and they would be x equals plus or minus the square root of d. If d is equal to 0, then x squared equals d has one solution, and x is equal to 0.
Hey, can I have the homework for today?
I don't know what the homework is yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just wait for the video. Bye bye. I'm sorry.
If d is less than 0, then x squared equals d has no solution. Now, much later on in math, you will learn what it is if basically x squared is equal to a negative number. You'll learn what happens. But right now, just no solution. So we're going to jump right into solving equations. And so this is, all they say is literally solve the equation. You're just going to have to keep in mind these are not necessarily factoring problems anymore. So you're going to be solving basically a different way than we were solving in the entire last chapter. Now, some of these may be able to factor, okay, but there's the intent with this section is that we are solving by using square roots. So basically my goal is to get x by itself. So first I'm going to add 32. So 2x squared equals 32. Then I'm going to divide by 2. So x squared equals 16. Now, x doesn't have anything else that it's being multiplied by, but this is x squared. So to undo a square, I take the square root of both sides. And when I do this, this is equal to plus or minus the square root of whatever it is. So the square root of x squared is just x. And this is equal to, well, what's the square root of 16?
4.
So this is equal to plus or minus 4. So when you're solving equations that have square roots, we always have two answers unless it's 0, which is the situation we had up here. All right. 6. 2m squared minus 42 equals 8. So my goal is to get m by itself, so I'm going to add the 42. So I have 2m squared equals 50. Now I divide by 2. M squared equals 25. So to undo a square, we take the square root. And when I do that, it's always plus or minus. Probably going to get tired of hearing me say that, but I'm trying to make it so you don't forget. So this is m equals, what's the square root of 25? 5. So we've got plus or minus 5 is our solution. Eight. A squared plus 8 equals 3. So what I have to do first? Subtract 8. So that gives me a squared is equal to negative 5. Now what? What did I do up here? Take the square root of both sides. I think I heard somebody say it though. What happens when I have a negative under a square root? No solution.
Good job, Harrison.
I'm proud of you, Harrison.
No solution because of this negative sign here. Ten. 2w squared plus 13 equals 11. What do I do first?
Subtract it.
So I get 2w squared equals negative 2. Now what? Divide by 2. So w squared equals negative 1. Now what?
Squared, but like no solution.
No solution because you can't have the square root of a negative number. It's a non-real number. Do you also have your calculators with you?
Mine's dead.
Okay. We'll just do it this way. We'll do it without calculators. It'll be easier. All right. 18. X squared plus 11 equals 24. So we're doing the same thing. These ones just aren't going to come out to be like perfect squares. So what do I do first? Subtract 11. So I've got x squared equals 13. Now what?
Square root.
I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 13. We're just going to leave it like that. The reason I asked if you had your calculators, we were going to type, the book types them in and gets a decimal number, but I would rather you just leave them under the radical like that. So this will be your answer. So if it's a perfect square, like the ones we had up here, where it's like the square root of 25, square root of 16, square root of 81, things like that, then you will go ahead and you will solve it out. But if it's something that's not a perfect square like this one, where it's the square root of 13, then we'll just leave it under the radical like that. 20. 2a squared minus 9 equals 11. What do I do first? So 2a squared equals 20. Now what? Divide by 2. You have to have the variable or whatever is being squared completely by itself first. So a squared is equal to 10. Now, I'm also going to tell you, you do not have to write these square roots on both sides every time. I'm just doing it while you're getting used to it. So, what is my answer to this one then?
A equals plus or minus the square root of 10.
Yep, a equals plus or minus the square root of 10. It's 24. Negative 21 equals 15 minus 2z squared. What should I do first? You can, but you don't need to. Subtract 15, so I get negative 36 equals negative 2z squared. Now what? Negative 2. So divide by negative 2, and, oh goodness, what is that? Positive 18. Have to be careful so you don't get your last cookie point. This is the kind of stuff where it's inclined to happen. All right, now what?
Yeah.
So it's plus or minus the square root.
Yep, plus or minus the square root of 18 is equal to z.
I see you can go.
All right, y'all try this one on your own. 9n squared minus 14 equals negative 3. So take a second and work through that one. What do we get?
N equals plus or minus the square root of 1.2 repeating.
I had
I
17.
just put.
I don't think I got it right. I just put plus or minus.
I actually divided it.
I'm like, I just put 11.
Plus or minus the square root of 11 over 9. I said we're leaving things as they are. We're not doing decimals.
Oh, it would have helped if I got negative 3 plus 14.
Theoretically,
All right, these next ones are going to be, it's the same principle, but they're done a little bit different, okay? So, 32.
It's still paused.
Cookie point.
That is not a cookie point. X minus 7 squared equals 6. So the difference in this problem and say like the last problem or any of the other ones we've done previously was that the square was only on the variable, okay? But this one is on this whole piece. So to solve this, we do this a little bit different. We still take the square root of both sides, but I do this from the start because the square is on the whole thing. So to undo that, okay, I have to take the square root of both sides. So this is going to be x minus 7 equals plus or minus the square root of 6. Now I'm trying to get x by itself. So at this point, then I would add the 7 over. And so I will have x equals 7 plus or minus the square root of 6. And that will be my final answer. Okay, so this is really two separate solutions ultimately because we really have x equals 7 plus the square root of 6 or x equals 7 minus the square root of 6. But for the sake of time and what we're doing, you can just write it as, one thing. (34) 6 times, in parentheses, x plus 4 squared equals 18. So this one is even a little bit different than the previous one because now there's something being multiplied by the stuff in parentheses that's being squared. So I have to have it so that that parentheses is by itself. So I'm going to first divide by 6. So this is going to be x plus 4 squared equals 3. Now I take the square root of both sides. And so I end up with x plus 4 equals plus or minus the square root of 3. Then I'm going to subtract the 4. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 3. And we always want this part, the plus or minus, whatever the square root is, to be at the end so it's not confusing as to what's not under and what is under the square root. All right, I want you to try 36 on your own. It's just like this one. So 5 times, in parentheses, a minus 2 squared equals 70. So take a minute and try that one. Do we have an answer?
A equals 2 plus or minus the square root of 14.
Do you agree with her? Good. Yep, so divide by 5, take the square root of both sides. Make sure we get that plus or minus, and then add the 2. And that's our final answer. Any questions?
Can you give us a free cookie?
No.
I will give you $5.
You got 3 more sections to get a cookie
I
one.
give you $5.
I'll add $3 to the end of
Then you might as well just go buy your own cookies.
Good point.
That's fair. That's a fair point.
All right, problems.
I'm finishing this in like 5 minutes.
Thank you for
Once it
using
gives like a
such-
million problems.
5, 7, 9, 14.
Cookie point, you put an even one in this.
19, no, never mind, not 19. 23, 25, 33, 35, and 37.